Isn't this nice? Do you like this? Hi, hey, hello, and welcome back to my channel. This special guest does not want to be in the video, so he's gotta go. Goodbye. Oh, goodbye. Today I wanted to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of January. I ended up being able to read 7 books. So definitely not my best reading month, but 7 is better than 6, right? So I'm happy that I got 7 of them in. And 2 of them ended up being physical copies of books that I own. So that's awesome that I was able to get 2 books off of my physical TBR this month. Anyway, let's just get into it. So the first book that I read in January was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. And oh my gosh, I just love this series so much. I cannot wait for the 3rd book to come out later this year. I'm so incredibly excited for it. I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace back in October, and that is the first book in the Maple Hill series. This one is the second one. It came out in 2023. And this follows one of the other hockey players on the team that the main guy Nate from the first book is on. So this book is about Russ, and you hear a little bit about him in Icebreaker, and like you can already tell that he's such a sweetheart. And then you get his full story in this one. When we start Wildfire, Russ meets Aurora at a college party, and then accidentally runs into her again the next day when they discover that they will both be on staff at a summer camp all summer. It's super awkward at first, but then things start to heat up, it gets spicy, and it's really fun. This was just a really good book. I would definitely read it again. I loved their story and getting to watch them fall for each other while you get a ton of cameos from the other characters in the first book. It was an immediate 5-star and made me, like I said, super stoked for Daydreamer, the next one that'll come out in this series. After Wildfire, I read Carval by Stephanie Garber. This is a YA fantasy book that came out in 2017. I was a little bit unsure in the beginning whether or not it was YA. It was giving me such strong YA vibes, but I had to look it up just to make sure, and yes, it is. This is a story about the main character Scarlett and her sister Donatella. They are invited to Carval. This is the story of how they get there and what happens during the game. I'm gonna be completely honest because obviously that's what I do. This is my YouTube channel. I didn't like this story. I didn't feel like I connected to it at all. I don't necessarily think that the writing was bad. It just felt like very, very YA. Like, I feel like if I had read this story when I was like 12, I would think that it was so cool and be like super obsessed with it. But because I'm not 12, it just felt really juvenile to me. Like the way that the characters act and think just felt a bit nonsensical, and these characters aren't 12-year-olds, mind you, so it felt really unrealistic to me. I honestly felt kind of bored, and the plotline felt a bit messy to me. The world felt to me like the author had the idea for the Carval games and got like super excited to write that story, but then realized like you need a lot more to really flesh out a whole book. And so they just started like slapping random plot points in there. I could totally be wrong, obviously, but that's just how I felt while I was reading this. To be honest, I only read this because I wanted to understand the hype. This book has been popular for so long, and I also really want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I've totally heard that you can read that series without reading Carval first, but I just felt like, why not get more context? Why not learn to understand the world better? So I figured I should start with this trilogy first. However, once I finished this book, I was like, I don't know if I can handle Legendary and Finale after this. I really didn't enjoy this. I gave it 2 stars. We'll see whether or not I read the other 2 before going on to the next series. I already own the first 2 books in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series on Kindle, so we'll see. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. Literally, it's actually for children, so we'll see. After Carval, I read Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. This book came out last year in 2023, and I feel like there was a lot of hype around it. I feel like Catherine Center really blew up with The Bodyguard. I know that she's got lots of other books, and I do plan on trying out a couple more of her books, but if I'm being honest, I didn't love this one. I ended up giving it 3 stars because I don't think it was awful or anything, it just definitely wasn't for me. This book is about a woman named Sadie. She is a professional portrait artist. She's just placed as a finalist in a big portrait competition, but in a series of unfortunate events, she ends up with sudden face blindness. So she can see, but her brain mixes up people's facial features to the point where she can't recognize anyone just by their face. Now, that's obviously a problem since she's got to paint people's faces. That's her job. That's what she's going to do in this competition. So she's trying to figure that out. All the while, she is falling for 2 guys at the same time. It's giving love triangle, there's a lot going on there. So let me just say, when I read a book, I almost never try to figure out what's gonna happen. I'm just along for the ride. I love to see where the story's gonna go. I'm not trying to guess it because I know that if I do guess it correctly, that'll make me sad and that'll change the way that I read the book and it'll feel a bit tired by the end of the book. But sometimes your brain just guesses for you. You're not even trying. It's just like, oh, hey, this is probably what happened. And you're like, yeah, okay. That's what happened here. I swear to God, I was not trying to guess the end of this book, but I did very early on. And let me tell you, it did ruin it for me. It did ruin it for me because by the time that I got to the ending, I was so tired of it. Like, I was just done. I wanted to be done with the book because I was like, we know. This was so easy to figure out. I didn't like how predictable and completely unrealistic this book was. I feel like maybe the author found out about facial blindness and was like, there's a story here. I am gonna write a romance book that surrounds somebody getting facial blindness, and I just don't think that it was executed really well because I was able to figure it out without even trying. I know that a lot of people really like this book. It just wasn't for me. It does make me nervous to try out another one of her books, but I do want to try because I know that she has a lot more books that are more literary fiction, and that sounds interesting to me if I'm not quite vibing with her romance books. I might actually already own The Bodyguard on Kindle. I don't remember, but I will try out more of her books in the future. This just wasn't my favorite, so I gave it 3 stars. After Hello Stranger, I read The Storied Life of A.J. Ficker by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a literary fiction book from 2014. I was not aware of that when I started reading this book. I didn't realize that it's literally a decade old now. And most people that I know of are reading this book now because they've read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin and they wanted to check out her other works. I still have yet to read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I want to so badly. I've heard that it's amazing. But I figured while I wait to get to the point where I can read that one, might as well check this one out. So I got it from the library. And I liked it. I think that it was a good book. I was super excited to read it because Haley Pham and Destiny Sidwell have rated it like 4 stars and above. So I knew that like people that I watch on YouTube regularly are really liking it. This is a literary fiction about the life of a bookseller named A.J. Ficker. It goes through most of his life and all of the big events that go on in it. It's interesting and well written and sweet at times, but I did feel like it had a general undertone of melancholy that I didn't super love. I've said before that most of the time when I read a book, I want to escape. I don't want it to be sad. That's really not my favorite. But I can totally acknowledge when a book is well written and worth reading, it's just not my favorite because it is kind of sad. It's a good book. I gave it 4 stars, and I don't think that I'll soon forget the plot of this book, but I did feel like I needed a happier read afterwards. So then I read Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer. This is obviously the 3rd book in the Twilight series. The Twilight series is most definitely a 5-star series for me. But so far, out of the 3 that I've read, this one was my least favorite by far. The drama with the love triangle felt like it was kicked up to 100, and I did not love that. I am not a fan of love triangles. The drama is honestly just kind of annoying to me, and we all know who gets picked in the end. Most of the time with a love triangle, it's pretty obvious from the beginning, so it feels like you're just being jerked around the whole time, you know? Yeah, I just don't love love triangles, but I mean, like, who does? I don't know, maybe some people do. And I know that this is considered to be like one of the greatest love triangles of our time, but that doesn't make it like better or more enjoyable to read about, in my opinion. Also, I didn't like Charlie in this book. I personally feel like Charlie in the movies, he's way better. He's way more likable. I was so irritated with Charlie in this book, and that made me really sad because he's one of my favorite Twilight characters. So I did not like that about this book either. It honestly just felt a little bit long too, but I am really excited to get to Breaking Dawn and finish off this series. I ended up giving that one 3 stars. After Eclipse, I read First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This is a new release. It came out this month, and I was miraculously able to get my hands on it immediately from the library. This is a thriller. This book is about a woman named Evie Porter. She's got it all. She's got the perfect boyfriend, she's got a cute house, she's got a good friend group. The only catch is that Evie Porter doesn't exist. That's all that I knew going into this book. That's the synopsis that I had heard a couple times, and I think that that's just perfect. That's all that you need, because if you know more, it takes away from the book a little bit. So I would say don't look into it anymore. If you're into thrillers and this sounds interesting to you, just go read it. Just try it out for yourself, because I felt like as I was reading it, I was like, what the heck is going on? And that was such a fun experience to me. This book is suspenseful and fast-paced. It's full of action. The story really pulled me in and kept me excited to see what was gonna happen next. I liked it, and I would definitely recommend it. 4 stars. And lastly, I read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I have finally finished the Harry Potter series after maybe like 3 or 4 years. I've been taking the series really slow. I wasn't trying to rush through it because I have seen all the movies so many times. So sometimes it felt a little bit like annoying to have to get through these books because I already know everything that's gonna happen. So it was fun to just like sprinkle them. Every once in a while I would read one, but I am so happy to be done with this series. I can finally say I've read all of the Harry Potter books. And I will say the conclusion to this series did absolutely wow me, because I did not have a great time with the 6th book. I thought that it was really boring and dry compared to the movie version. So I was really interested to read this one because I didn't have a great experience with the last one. Also, this book is split up into 2 movies. So I was really interested to see how that would translate into the book. And I feel like because they only had 1 book to make into 2 movies, those 2 movies really stuck as closely as possible to the book, because you're trying to like get all of the content out of it that you can, so the movies are like normal runtimes. Even though I knew what was gonna happen in the end, I felt so excited to get back to this book whenever I wasn't reading it, which is kind of amazing. It's heavy and it's got its sad moments. I definitely cried for sure, but I also feel like it's so worth it. Yeah, I'm glad to have finally finished this series. I'm happy to be able to put all of the books on my shelf finally, because I don't put books on my bookshelf unless I've finished them. So this has just been migrating around my house for years, and I'm excited to finally put it to rest with its brothers and sisters on the shelf. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, 5 stars. All right, those are all of the books that I read in January. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about them. I feel like part of the reason why I didn't read more was because Eclipse and the Deathly Hallows are huge. So I feel good about that. I got those 2 big boys out of the way. Now I just have to finish Breaking Dawn. I'll probably do that in February. and then I will have 2 major series under my belt, and I know that will feel so good. You can give this video a like if you liked it. You can subscribe if you want to see what I'm gonna read next month. Give me a comment down below. Tell me what you read in January. What was your favorite book that you've read in the last month? Anyway, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!